The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Don't you just love the way John Lennon bellows that song out? That is the theme song, as you all know, of the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. By the way, it's been a great day for me because in the previous hour on many of these stations, I was able to substitute for the great Larry Kudlow. And so it is great to be with you. By the way, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area today, and it is absolutely the most perfect, beautiful, gorgeous day that we've had so far this spring and early summer. And so hope it's wonderful and beautiful where you are. And after the show is over in an hour, I hope you get out and enjoy the sunshine. It's 74 degrees here. It is beautiful blue skies and nice breeze. So get out. I say the best thing you can do to be healthy is get outside, get exercise, get the sunlight, get the fresh air. That is the best way to keep yourself healthy. So anyway, I hope you're having a great weekend. I'm having a great weekend. I got some tennis in this morning. I got a jog. And Connor, what'd you do this morning?
Yeah, I also went for a jog. Yeah. And I have been getting to work for you guys and really loving it. So I'm scoping out a new place where I can live that I can afford now.
It's a great week to be looking for apartments. And by the way, Connor has been with us now for a year. He is my right-hand man for the show. So thanks so much for your help, Connor, and making the show a success. Thanks, we are going to – a couple of things I wanted to say at the outset here. First of all, you may have followed this story about Exxon Mobil. And Exxon Mobil is one of our 10 – maybe one of our most iconic companies in America, certainly in the top 10 or 20. It is, I think, 8th or 9th or 10th in terms of profits. It is a major employer in this country. It provides the energy for this nation. And it is for 140 years, dating back to John D. Rockefeller. It was domiciled in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey. Well, New Jersey's gone kind of crazy, as many of you know, with respect to their left-wing policies. They actually sued a company in their own state on climate change issues because they hate fossil fuels. And what kind of a politician and a lawyer would sue their cash cow? You don't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. And of course, Exxon has been a major force and job creator in New Jersey over many, many, many decades. And so, as you know, most of you, Exxon decided to move out of New Jersey and to re-domicile into Texas. Well, Texas is a pro oil and gas state, whereas New Jersey politicians hate oil and gas. Among other things, it's more higher taxes, more lawsuits in New Jersey, et cetera, et cetera. So there are many, many reasons why it made sense for Exxon to move out of New Jersey and to move to Texas. So many companies are moving to Texas right now. This is a classic red state, blue state battle. So the politicians in New Jersey and the Northeast said, no, you can't move out of, they wanted almost like an exit tax for leaving because so many companies are leaving New Jersey, New York, California, my home state of Illinois, and they're all going to Florida, they're going to Texas, they're going to Utah, they're going to Idaho. And so anyway, they did everything they could to stop the move. And so what happened was there was a vote of the shareholders of Exxon, because they own the company, whether they then this is right and proper that they should do that. The shareholders who own the company should make these decisions. And there was a big campaign by the left-wing politicians and by even these, what they call proxy advisors, ISS and Glass Lewis, which recommend to the big money management firms, which own a lot of these stocks, whether they should vote for or against these shareholder resolutions. And incredibly, ISS and Glass Lewis recommended not to agree to the change in location. And so what happened was 71% of the Exxon shareholders said, yes, we want out of New Jersey. We want to go to Texas. Now, the reason I mention this whole story is I have a new big project that I'm working on, which is that because the blue states continue to raise taxes, continue to suck up to the trial lawyers, continue to overregulate their state, continue to require workers to join unions against their will. And I'm not against unions, but I am certainly against, since I was 15 years old and had to actually join a union as an usher, I've not liked unions taking money out of people's paychecks without their approval. And anyway, so blue states have become very hostile to business and hostile to wealth and hostile to being successful and hostile to making money. And so my premise is that the companies in America, publicly traded companies that are on stock exchanges and have shareholders, have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to get out of blue states and go to red states, pro-business red states, and get out of anti-business blue states. Now, I know a lot of you listening to this show live in blue states. You may live in Connecticut. You may live in New Jersey. We're national with this show. But what I'm saying is it's so much more expensive now to do business in blue states that maybe it's time for more and more companies to simply abandon blue state America. Incidentally, the tax rates in blue states tend to be twice as high as in red states. The energy costs, because of crazy green energy policies in blue states, are twice as high on average as they are in red states that don't have these stupid solar and wind requirements, et cetera. And so there's all sorts of advantages for companies to be domiciled in red states. Like, by the way, you all know this because I say it every show. There are 9 states in America that don't have any income tax at all. Zero. The rate is zero, not 14 or 15% as it is in New York and California. And so we're starting to see a massive migration out of these blue states of companies, but I think it could be even bigger. Now you would think that these blue states would catch on. These Democratic politicians would say, wait a minute, all these rich people are leaving, all the companies are leaving, the jobs are leaving, the capital is leaving. Maybe we should temper some of our tax policies. They're doing exactly the opposite. Look at Maine. I think we have a station up in Maine that listens to this show. Maine just raised their income tax rate. California wants a 5% wealth tax. They already have the highest income tax in the country. New York City, Mandami is saying, we don't have enough money. Even though we're spending twice as much per person as every other city in America, we don't have enough money, so we have to raise taxes again. Same thing has happened in, of all places, Hawaii just raised their income tax. Seattle, Washington now has a 10% income tax. They used to have zero. So the point is these blue states are moving in the wrong direction. The red states are actually making their taxes lower. And so think about that. Maybe companies should just get out of blue states. You can be anywhere in America. Why would you? Now, look, Silicon Valley, of course, there's big advantages if you're a tech company of being in Silicon Valley. But my goodness, why would you want to be in New Jersey, frankly? Why would you want to be in Seattle now, which has turned so anti-business? So I'm a crusader on this issue. Companies have a fiduciary duty to get out of blue states because their policies are not conducive to making products and making profits. And of course, by the way, my liberal friends think profit is a dirty word. They really do. They think profit is a bad thing. Profit is what makes the world go round. It's the reason we have the greatest companies in the world. It's the reason that we have all of the wonderful things we have in this country, because of the profit motive. Profit is not a dirty word. Loss is a dirty word. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I wanted to say that. Got a great show lined up, by the way. I will be taking your calls. I will be taking your calls at the end of the show because I want your attitudes about what's going on in America in terms of the economy and politics. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to have on my good friend Thomas Phillips, who is going to talk about how we can save lives with better economic policy. This is the More Money Show, and we'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. My next guest, let's talk some economics. My next guest is Thomas Phillips, and truly one of the top economists in the country. He was with the chairman. He was chairman of the Economic Policy Council under Donald Trump in his first term, and is very influential with the Trump administration to this day. He also works with me at Unleash Prosperity. So, Thomas, thanks for joining.
Great to be with you, Steve.
So we got a lot to cover. You have a great study that I've co-authored, but you did most of the work on you've done two studies, and one of them we talked about the last time you were on the air, which was the cancer study about how much this would be if we could cure cancer, hundreds of trillions of dollars, literally, of benefit to mankind in just the United States by curing cancer. So we have to win that war. Now you have a new study that you've worked on that I think is fascinating, and that's one of the reason I wanted to have you on the air, which is if we could speed up the drug approval process in Washington at the Food and Drug Administration, we could save a lot of lives, but it would also be enormously beneficial to the American economy. Explain.
Yeah, so most people, when they hear that, get afraid because they think you're going to deal with unsafe products if the Food and Drug Administration doesn't get its will. But that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing safety goes actually pretty quickly to be determined by the FDA. What their second mandate from Congress is not only safety, it's effectiveness. What's the quality of the product? And very few government agencies are involved with trying to tell consumers that the government knows best what the quality of a product is, particularly because it gets determined by sort of an average statistic of the product as opposed to patients, which are very, very heterogeneous in if they want to take the risks of side effects or the benefit of treatment, etc. So it becomes this one-size-fits-all decision that takes an enormous time, sometimes a decade, for FDA to decide. And on top of it, many times after that, they let the private sector decide whether something is working or not for what's called off-label uses when you don't need FDA approval, essentially. So it's very, very strange in some way that FDA takes a decade to decide and then lets the private sector decide on other uses that the FDA doesn't need to clear, essentially. So, again, this is not about safety issues. This is about how well is a product working, essentially. So what we looked at was essentially if you shorten that time by anywhere from 1 to 6 years, there's about a 10 to 48 $1 trillion benefit from doing that, essentially, because health is so valuable to people that these products are extremely valuable to people, and holding them therefore off the market is enormous damage to patients in general. And I think there's a big role for FDA to cut. It doesn't have to get out of the safety business, but they should be getting out of this lengthy effectiveness business. They could do still the effectiveness, but they need to do it much quicker. That's our sort of takeaway from this.
Now, this is critically important. It is a very important study. And by the way, you can go to our website, unleashprosperity.com, and you can pull down the study. And you know, it's not just a matter of money. I mean, that study does show trillions of dollars of benefit to the American economy. But my gosh, Thomas, right now there are at least 5 or 6 very, very promising drugs that are just sitting on the shelf that will not be approved by the FDA, dealing with everything from MS to Parkinson's disease to diabetes to epilepsy. And, you know, I'm kind of a libertarian, as you know, so I think that people, if they, you know, my attitude about some of these drugs is my body, my choice. If people want to try these drugs, especially if you have a terrible disabling disease, why wouldn't you let people try these drugs? What would be the harm of that? And I think it's almost cruel not to let people suffering from these terrible diseases have a chance for a cure.
Yeah, I mean, the FDA is operating under a mandate from Congress, so it's not really FDA, it's Congress that needs to change.
So Congress is requiring these. It's ridiculous. It's outrageous. Yeah. So are we going to need Congress to change the law?
Yeah, in 1962, there was an amendment to the Food and Drug Administration Act, which basically said we need not only safety, but we we need effectiveness trials. That doesn't mean FDA is off the hook. FDA could do this much, much quicker than they are currently doing it. And it's a lot of bureaucracy, and there's a lot of lengthy delays within FDA that could just look at the way they handled the COVID vaccines. It took them 9 months, right?
Warp speed.
A decade. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in that case, it's clear that this can go a lot more faster.
Yes.
And not only COVID patients value faster approval, so does the rest of the patient population suffering from every other disease.
Well, it's a really good analogy for the most part. The problem that, a lot of people have negative attitudes about that vaccine because the government required people to take the vaccine. What we're saying is, if you have a new drug, people should have the choice of whether they want to try this. And as long as you're telling people the risk of taking it, why not allow people, especially if they don't have any other options? Why not give people hope?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's no downside if you're dying. What's worse than that, essentially? And why can't you try potentially a beneficial treatment? And the private sector determines effectiveness all the time. Like I said, for off-label uses of in FDA. So. And that is very, very common in oncology and cancer care, essentially, where there's life and death involved. So why can't we just do that immediately, in some sense, as opposed to waiting for the first cause or disease that being investigated by the FDA for a decade? Why don't we just have the private sector determine effectiveness like it does already for many, many, many diseases?
It's such an important study, and I hope people will go to Unleash Prosperity and look this up and call your Congress and say, come on, let's get these drugs. I'll just give you one quick example, Thomas. There's a promising drug that people can take in their 60s that can delay the onset of Alzheimer's. And guess what? I'm 67, and I have Alzheimer's gene in my family. So this is a drug I'd like to take, but the FDA won't let me do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's crazy, to be honest. And I think it's not how the act was intended, essentially. I think it's grown into this monster bureaucracy that basically takes forever. And the issue is that they only care about unsafe, or ineffective drugs going on the market. That's what's called type 1 error.
Exactly.
Type 2 error concerns not approving safe and effective drugs in the first place.
Well, Thomas, it's a great study. Thank you so much for doing it. Thanks for carving out some time for the More Money Show. And folks, we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. My next guest is a good friend and a good friend of American Families, Jeff Yass of Susquehanna Capital. You all know, many of you do know, Jeff is one of the most amazing supporters of school choice and providing literally thousands of kids with opportunities to go to good Catholic schools, charter schools, when the public schools are failing. And the reason I wanted to bring on Jeff is because he has offered in Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia area, where there's a number of schools that are closing down. Jeff has offered to basically like a scholarship for these families for up to 4,000 kids that could go to a great school instead of having to move out of their district. And yet the teachers union would come down against him for wanting to help spend his own money to help these families. So Jeff, first of all, thanks for coming on, and thanks for everything you do for American kids and families.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So tell the story. It's almost you can tell the story better than I can, but it's just the most astounding thing. And by the way, you and your wife, Janine, have been just amazing in terms of the way you have helped so many kids in this country. But boy, no good deed goes unpunished.
I think this story sort of illustrates where the left is at. There were 17 schools in Philadelphia that they wanted to close. They could seat like 1,000 kids. There's 100 or 200 in there, and all the schools have terrible test scores, and they're terrible. So they wanted to close them, and it would be 4,000 kids that would be forced to move. But they got a lot of resistance from those, from some of the families who didn't want to move. So we said, we will give 500 of the kids out of the 4,000 an $8,000 per year scholarship. So $4 million bucks a year for every year that they go to another school, a Catholic school, or whatever else they want to do. Yeah. And we'll pay it. So you can. You mean
you and Janine would pay for their tuition?
Their tuition. My wife and I would pay for their tuition. So it's basically a $25 to $30 million gift to the city of Philadelphia.
Oh my God! Yeah,
and it solves one of the big problems, one of the big stories in Philadelphia.
And by the way, I bet a lot of those kids are probably minorities.
They're all minorities, or essentially all minorities. The supposed champion of minorities came out, called us dastardly, and said that like Dick Dastardly, waving money in front of kids' faces for his evil capitalist plan is, despicable. That's how they responded. So far, we're trying to get the kids. We have a website. We're trying to get the kids to apply on the website, but we've received no support from anybody in Philadelphia. Certainly not from the mayor, not from city council, and certainly not from Josh Shapiro, the get shit done governor. So here we are offering this money, and the answer is just silence, or you're an evildoer, dastardly capitalist. That's where we stand in Philadelphia.
So these are the teachers' unions that are supposedly in favor of children.
Yes, yes, they are.
It's really, this is a sad story. I mean, it really is. First of all, thank you for what you're doing for these kids and families. But the fact that there's so much resistance. I mean, this is free money you're offering to the city and to these families, and they say you're dastardly for it.
Yes. If anything, someone said to me, the left is not trying to solve the problem. Like, we waste our time sometimes, you and I, Steve, talking about this program is good, this program is bad. The real reality, the sad reality, is the left is not trying to solve the problem. They know school choice would make kids much happier. They know they'd save a fortune, but they would lose power. And their goal is to get power. And I don't think anything illustrates it better than this circumstance. Yes. We're offering 25 million, possibly 40, depending on how many kids sign up and at what time. And the answer is no, get out of here.
So you've been made famous in the last couple of months because you also had a piece, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but you were talking about how much it costs in New York to educate a kid, and it was like 40,000. I forget the number, like some amazing amount of money per year per child.
43,500.
What is it?
43,500.
But the schools are failing.
Yeah, it's 37.
What are they getting for the 43,000? Jesus. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. And what we try to argue was, if you divided that money, that number, by the way, has doubled in real terms in the last 30 years. So we used to spend 20, and now and it's not like they hired teachers or they gave teachers big raises, because teachers have not done well in all this. They have been a victim as well. They just hired bureaucrats and climate managers, they call it, just a bunch of administrators who produce absolutely nothing. And if we just divided that 43,000 in half and gave everyone a $21,000 voucher and a $21,000 money in their bank account, they would graduate with $300,000. And the affordability crisis that got Mamdani elected would go away. And of course, the answer is, we don't want to do that.
So let me just make sure I understand the math here, Jeff. So you were saying, for example, the Catholic schools in New York probably cost less than around 20, or what would it be?
Way less than 20. We just use 20. You can go to a fancy Catholic.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just say, for sake of argument, let's just say it was 20,000. So you're saying we could give every and by the way, the Catholic schools have open seats, so they could actually take a lot of these kids. So you give them, so basically you give them a voucher for $20,000 so they can go to the Catholic school, and then you give $20,000 to the family that they could then put in the bank and almost like a Trump account and accumulate money over 15 years. And how much money would they have by the time they graduate?
They would have, if you started in kindergarten, you'd have $300,000, assuming you put the money, in a.
You mean per child, per kid?
Yes, per kid.
Per kid.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So this just shows you how wasteful this is. These numbers add up, folks. I mean, we can get these numbers for you folks, and you can see. Yeah. So what you're saying is, in New York City, you can get a better education for half the cost.
Absolutely. Way better. Plus, you don't have to, Catholic schools are a great option, but you can homeschool. You can, parents can Charters, get together with 20,000, 10 parents can get together and they have $200,000. They can make their own little school, and it sounds too good to be true. I'm afraid I sound like a crazy person. If anybody tells you,
because the numbers are so big. Yeah.
I can give you a much better education. You can graduate with $300,000. You'd say, well, that's too good to be true. But it is true, and that's how dysfunctional. And
even, by the way, Jeff, even if you're wrong by 50%, those are still giant numbers. So that's what we need to. We need to go to these minority families and tell them, this is what they're doing to you by ripping you off with the excessive costs. And what, by the way, in New York City and in Chicago and Philadelphia, you've got half the kids can't even read or do math at grade level proficiency. Maybe it's worse than that.
Way less than half. Yeah, it's 75% can. And by the way, Philadelphia is 32,000 a kid. Chicago's 35. New York City, is always the biggest and most corrupt, but not by much.
So, Jeff, why is it that, because you and I have talked about these numbers, if you ask the people in New York City or Chicago, we spent 12,000, or they completely lowball the numbers. And then they say, oh, we're not spending enough. Your numbers say that they're spending 2 to 3 times more than they're admitting.
Necessary. Yeah. Well, their algorithm is give us money, we spend it. The kids can't read and write. There's only one conclusion we can reach from that. We need more money. So in Philadelphia, New York, they'll constantly say the schools are underfunded because they have to be underfunded by their logic. If kids can't read and write, obviously they didn't give them enough money. It doesn't cross their mind. They wasted it and they spent it on nonsensical administrators. So once you have that algorithm, you wind up spending all the resources in the world for no production.
So, Jeff, in our last minute, why is it that the Democratic Party won't? This is in the interests of their own voters and their own families, and these. Why don't they get this?
You're assuming, Steve, that they're trying to solve the problem. They know that if there was school choice, the teachers, the teachers union would collapse, and that's who funds them, and that's who gets them their votes. There are 5 million people between the NEA and the UFT who are union members, so they're not going to give up that power structure. And if the kids have to suffer, they don't care. And that's
and as you know, Jeff, like when you go to the Democratic National Convention every 4 years, like over half of the delegates are teachers union members.
Right. Yeah.
So they own the Democratic Party.
Yes. There really is no Democratic Party. There's just the teachers union, and they hire the Democratic Party, Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Jeff, thank you for what you and Janine have done. It's an amazing philanthropist that you are, and helping so many families. And I know the teachers unions think you're dastardly, but I don't think most Americans do. Keep up with it, my friend. And by the way, folks, we will be back in just 1 minute, and we will be taking your calls. I want to hear from you. We're nationwide, 1-800-848-9222 on any of these subjects we've talked about, 1-800-848-9222. This is The More Money Show, and we'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you very much for joining. I always say I'm not the greatest radio talk show host, but I have the smartest audience, and our numbers are great. So thank you so much for joining. we've got about 10 minutes left of the show, and we have 2 lines open. I've saved the last 10 minutes for your calls because I always learn so much from listening to you. So if you'd like to join the show and you have an opinion on any of the subjects we've talked about so far in this hour, I would love to hear from you. As I said, we have one line open right now, 1-800-848-9222. I love hearing from the ladies, by the way. I especially love hearing from young people and the ladies, but sometimes the ladies are too bashful to call in. So if you want to call in, I'm going to tell our screener, put the ladies at the front of the line because we want to hear your opinion. I think, Mr. Producer, we have one caller so far.
We got a caller from New Jersey, Steve.
New Jersey, you're on.
My name is Eric Leaf, and I have cerebral palsy since birth. I was one of the architects for the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. I worked under President Reagan. My question is there any way they can fast track the drugs for
what?
For CP, for muscular dystrophy, for like your guest and you were talking about?
So thank you for calling, sir, and appreciate this call because it dovetails so well with what we were just talking about in a previous segment. For those of you just joining, we can save millions of lives and we can save trillions of dollars by getting drugs off of the rack at the FDA and into the pharmacies so that people can try them. And so people with disabling diseases, especially as they get older, why should they not have the right to try these drugs? And the FDA literally has dozens of drugs on the shelf. They look promising. We don't know for sure, but my opinion is, and I'm pretty libertarian, and I don't want the government making decisions for me. I like to use the line when it comes to trying drugs, my body, my choice. And if it's not dangerous to you, why wouldn't you let someone with MS or somebody with Parkinson's disease or someone with epilepsy? Exactly. Right. Why would you not allow them to try these drugs? It is cruel. It is cruel that the government is denying Americans the right to choose these drugs. Donald Trump is on our side on this one, by the way. And I feel just so passionately about this. I have a niece who has epilepsy, and my sister would give up everything she has to get a cure for that terrible disease. They're out there, folks. We're going to get these cures. And by the way, the sooner you have people starting trying these drugs, we learn from the process when people try them. We know people want to try the drugs, by the way, because when they have trials for cancer or for, any of these terrible diseases, people are lining up. They're praying for the chance to be in the trial. And then what they do is they give half of the people in the trial a placebo that's not the real drug. And then the people who are in the trial, they're praying that they got the real drug, not the placebo. So I don't understand the logic of this. If I sound angry, I am. And this is not just a matter of health. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But it is also a matter of our economy. As our study shows at Unleash Prosperity, you could save trillions of dollars. If people are more productive in their life, if they don't have to be hospitalized, why wouldn't you do this? And I'm not a spokesperson for pharma or anything like that, but I want America to be number one in drug development. So I feel so strongly about the need to do this. Trump does have a right to try policy, but guess what? The insurance companies won't insure for these drugs. As you know, the insurance companies are the really bad actors in our healthcare industry. And I wanted to make a couple of, by the way, Mr. Producer, do we have any other callers at this point? Chris, what do you got for us?
Too long open. Nobody calling in.
Chris, you're on the air.
All right. Yeah. Chris, yes.
Hey, Steve, it's pretty funny. I pulled over to talk to you. I was in my car, but I pulled over. I literally pulled over in front of a Moore Drive right now. I swear to God, I'm looking at the sign that says Moore Drive. But anyhow, I swear to God, can't make it up.
So what do you got for us, Chris?
The reason I called was because your previous guest that you had on, I get livid when I hear things like that. When I hear someone commonsensically trying to help out.
You know what, Chris? You got back noise. We can't hear you because you've got some background noise.
but they usually play like 5 minutes of regular time beforehand.
I turned off the radio. Am I good?
All right.
Now I can hear you better.
Yeah.
You're talking about our last guest, Mr. Jeff Yass.
Here, then we lose all our money.
You know what? I got to cut you off because we're not hearing you, and I apologize about that. So, yeah, all Steve.
Right. Yeah. We just don't want. Yeah.
You know what? We're having a problem with the call. So let me just make a couple of last points on this drug issue, because I know so many of you. I mean, I know from when I get feedback, people agree with us that this is America. People should have the right to choose when it comes to the drugs they put in their body. And when you've got a disabling disease, what have you got to lose? I mean, why would you not allow people to try a drug? Maybe it won't work, but let's say you had a stage 3 cancer. Why wouldn't you basically say to someone, hey, we'll give you the opportunity to use this drug, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, and let people make their own decision. Okay, do we have time for one more caller, Mr. Producer?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
In New Jersey.
You're on, sir.
All right. Mr. Dick?
I guess we...
There
yes,
you
sir.
are. We hear you.
Go ahead. You're on the air. Okay, I guess we lost him. So my point in all of this is we have the capacity to solve so many of these horrible diseases. It is critical to the American economy, especially, by the way, when it comes to childhood diseases. The other thing that you have to understand about why this is so important, we speed up the process, is investors are putting billions of dollars of investment money into finding these cures. We want to win the race for the cure. The United States has been responsible for about 80% of the wonder drugs that have come out over the last 30 years. But if you tell an investor, hey, you'll get a return on your money in 10 years, you're going to be much more likely to invest in that drug than if you say it's going to take 15 years, because there's something called the time value of money. So anytime you make an investment, you're looking at, well, how long will I get a return? And by the way, these are risky propositions, right? It's if you invest in a drug, less than a 50-50 chance that drug will even, ever make it to the market. So as you speed up the process of getting drugs on the market, you're saving lives. You're going to have a lot more money going into drug development and research. And think about this, folks, because of AI. And by the way, AI is a huge, huge advantage developing new drugs. We can detect cancer in patients now much faster than we used to because of AI technologies. So all of this means we can have a disease-free future if we get smart about our public policy and think about the economic and health advantages to that. There's an old saying that health is the first wealth. And if you're not healthy, you don't have any wealth at all. So, folks, I hope you're having a great weekend. This is the More Money Show. We will be back, by the way, same bat time, same bat channel next week. I am so thrilled that I got 2 hours today because I got to do the Kudlow show as well. But we will be back next week, and I hope you have a rest of your wonderful weekend.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?